university we have a program, a very special program, which happens once every 3 years.
A program of the University of Puget Sound.
The program itself is really quite something. It's amazing what you do and the places you go.
It's called Pacific Rim Asia Study Travel Program.
And in this program, the students travel in Asia for 9 months.
In 8 countries in 9 months.
The first thing that we should remind ourselves about the Pacific Rim program is it's one of the distinguishing features, not only of the study of Asia at the University of Puget Sound, but of the university itself.
One of the really great distinctions of this program is the fact that it takes advantage of, and perhaps is the best example of, another distinction about a University of Puget Sound education. And that's the way it combines a fundamental commitment to the traditional disciplines of liberal arts study, history, religion, culture, and at the same time manages to be so dramatically and radically interdisciplinary and to trespass some of those boundaries and see the relationships between cultures and disciplines and different perspectives of by which we can look at and understand culture. It's an amazing program.
The theme, the Benard years and beyond, for me as a historian, that's looking before Elizabeth's time as director, because of my perception that the history of the Pacific Rim program has informed what it has become, and every director has made a difference.
The founder of PacRim was a man named Bob Albertson.
He was the founder of both the Pacific Rim program and the Asian Studies program. The political events of the late 1960s were instrumental in informing Professor Albertson's commitment to the idea of Asia. He was not an Asianist. He did not know Asian languages, but he knew that Asia was important. He was a member of the faculty of religion and, in fact, was a person who taught courses on Old Testament and New Testament. But this is something that occupied his vision, that Asia was a place that all Americans should know something about. But he was on the faculty at the University of Puget Sound. He was instrumental in the hiring of Del Langbauer, who ended up Department of Religion taught courses, as was his expertise, on Asian religions. And Bob saw the Pacific Rim as both a way to get students to Asia and a way thematically to follow out on a kind of pilgrimage.
Professor Albertson was a really fine person. And I especially remember the theme of his trip to, at least to Kyoto, I think it was to, the whole trip was climbing sacred mountains. And I think one of the things that he did, I might have gone up Mount Hiei with the group at that point, I don't know. But climbing sacred mountains seemed like a very interesting sort of theme to have for a group.
His trips had always been grounded a lot in his experiences in India, which meant a great deal to him. Although we didn't conceive of the trip in those terms, we did keep a lot of the things, the itinerary focuses that he had, for especially countries where we hadn't been, like Korea or Sri Lanka. And those had always had some sort of pilgrimage element to them.
Professor Albertson brought the group to Kansai Gaidai at some point. I think that's probably where I first met him. And then maybe the next time around, I came up to the Kansai Seminar House. I do remember coming up to Kansai Seminar House once, right after the group had arrived. Mm-hmm. And so that would have been sometime in the early 80s at that point. Yeah. So it's been a long time, enjoyable.
And so he took a bunch of Christmas break, the month of January, and the first week of February, which would have been winter break, and he made a Buddhism PacRim. So it was a very unique one. And so he, his wife, who were, like I said, the founders of PacRim, and another religious professor, Del Landau, who left teaching altogether, led us.
Bob was really special. I mean, he was always there to answer questions, and he gave us, he was very well organized. So he gave us a lot, we had to do a lot of, contacting of people and setting stuff up. And he was very, very helpful, but he was also very sensitive and aware of not having us do his thing. He gave us a lot of space, and he didn't want it to be, he let us follow our instincts in, how we shaped and thought about the thing. And
I also team taught with Bob that first year that I was in Tacoma, and so I got to know Bob pretty well as a fellow teacher. He was a wonderful teacher, and I learned a lot about how to handle a group of people, how to be diplomatic, how to give people their space. From him. I loved him. He was a great guy.
He would be talking to a student and listening with such intensity that the impression he gave was that what the student was telling him was the most important thing that DA was going to hear that day.
The Albertson approach to things, which was spotting students who might not know that they needed the trip, and opening it up and sort of recruiting students who might not think about doing something like this.
They were absolutely the most genuine two people that I knew, and that's important. A lot of people can say, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, that's really great," and not mean it, But that wasn't true with the Albertsons. So that's where the professorship came in, and both of them. I think that Mrs. A challenged us intellectually too, but in a different way. How we related to the society we were in, how we were relating to each other at times. So they were always teaching all of us, I think.
And the group divided into groups of 5. Mm-hmm. I think it was something panchayats or something, with each group responsible for a particular activity. I don't know if you still do that, but one group would be responsible for watching the luggage whenever people had to stay at, say, an airport or train station or something. One group would watch the luggage while everybody else would split to do their things. Mm-hmm. Or another group, I think, had to prepare the rooms where there might be some activity like a lecture or presentation of some sort. And I think one group was responsible for writing thank you notes to the people who assisted with the program. And so each group was mutually responsible for themselves in terms of organization, getting to place, meeting, whatever, but also with some sort of functional activity for the group. And I remember we'd go on a trip or something, and Professor Allen would say, "Want your panchayats," or something like that. And the one hand would come up and say, you know, "Panchayat 1 is here," or something of that nature. And the other hand would come up and say that their group was there. And within 30 seconds or less, we'd know that the group was all there.
You know, he would just say, well, it's time to scatter and gather, and we'd just, off we go, you know, i.e., no, we don't have a planned activity. You know, so whatever it is that you want to do today, go ahead and do it, and then let us know whether there was something valuable in that experience. And again, that wasn't just the Pacific Rim with DA, that was everything that he did. I'm sure he didn't want to be in India during the Second World War, but he takes a very negative sort of context and turns it into a positive that is still going. You know, I mean, that's there's the, I guess, the proof in the pudding, right? Is that the program still exists, and it was his vision to have a program like that, and I think it honors DA and Mrs. A that the program continues.
Second, revolving directors, people hired in for a visiting position of 3 years, after which they moved on to tenure-line positions elsewhere. And I give great credit to Chris Connery and Mary Scott.
Christopher Connery and Mary Scott, 1984-85.
For being the first of these revolving directors.
So we did a kind of prep year, 83-84, then did the trip 84-85, and then had the year after. And the original design of the 3-year term was that, you know, you needed the prep year, and then in the final year you would help in the selection of the next group.
Their willingness to take it on was informed in part by the pattern that had been established by the Albertsons, and the Albertsons were ready to offer every assistance, as was Del Langbauer.
We both went to Princeton, but we only got married shortly before we went on Pacific Rim, like a year before. Oh, wow. So we had known each other for a lot longer than that, but this was the first adventure of our married life, and I think we both thought of it as an adventure, primarily, not as a career move.
We're both interested in local culture, local food, you know, especially the food. I agitated very heavily to have our Korean breakfast changed from Western breakfast to Korean breakfast. So instead of having toast and eggs and bacon, we would have kimchi and tofu and fermented shiso leaf. And the students pretended that they were with me on this, you know, but I think there was some nostalgia for the bacon once the fish started showing up.
1986, Michael Drump, letter from him. Well, my letter to him, really. Oh, here's his letter. 1986, September, right? And I remember something about, I guess I call Michael Drump, Professor Drump, Dr. Drump. When we went to Osaka, this was something that I specifically remember about that trip. A lot of the trips blend all into one sort of homogeneous mass, but I do remember specifically that as we were sitting and having lunch there near the Ishibutai, one of the great tombs there, he had the students read poetry from the Manyoshi. And the Manyoshi, of course, is the Nara period 8th century collection of poetry. And many of the poems do focus on the Osaka area, the Osaka River and so on. And I remember we had students just stand up and they would read a poem, and another would stand up and read a poem. And I thought that was quite nice.
Michael Drump followed Chris Connery and Mary Scott. Michael pioneered a course on campus called Asian Nomads in the Department of History. He is a historian. And colleagues here were not sure what kind of a student interest would follow that offering, but in fact it was jammed with a waiting list every time it was offered. Now you can see why someone with a PhD from Indiana University in Inner Asia and Altaic Studies would want to introduce a course that was new in his year. That's the Silk Road. He was able to do it on site. David Satterwhite followed Michael Drown and was the first of the directors to introduce Vietnam as a stop on the year.
Oh, this was a 1990-91 group, and this schedule was done in September 1989. I wonder if anybody would remember these names: Christine Aslop, Rachel Blair, Kimberly Blevins, Eric Carlson, David Cheney. I don't know if anybody remembers this. But let's see, the business manager, Bob Jones, and Madeline Simmons for Health Services Coordinator, David Satterwhite, Director, Hisai Satterwhite, probably David's wife, and Erica Satterwhite, must be the daughter. So, and I think Dave Satterwhite is now the head of the Fulbright mission in Tokyo.
Important to the Pacific Rim since the 80s has been the mid-year acting director who enables the entire group to have a new set of ideas and to enjoy some change. So I've always admired my colleagues who've undertaken to do this. Del Langbauer, Chris Eyes, Stuart Smithers, Carl Fields, and I know others on the faculty who look forward to the possibility of being a mid-year pinch hitter for the PacRim director in future years. Directors have to be people who are resourceful and who are able to handle the vagaries and vicissitudes of travel, and who understand ways to approach things that happen that were unexpected.
Relaxed.
Patience.
An immensely open mind.
Passionate as a professor, as a learner, and as a traveler.
To be curious and interested in everything, and not to have all the answers.
Good health, a sense of humor, lots of stamina.
Maternal, caring, enthusiastic, highly intelligent, and spiritual.
The belief that learning occurs in all sorts of ways.
Some sense of how a group functions. You have to have this sort of antenna about where are the people in the group and where are they headed.
As a director, the thing I love about her the most is that the trip never feels unsafe. It never feels like she's just throwing caution to the wind. We don't know where we're going to sleep or where we're going to eat, but at the same time, PacRim always did feel like there was a bit of mystery or adventure behind each new place that we were going to be. That she even though it was her 5th time doing the trip, like we did so much that no trip had done before. And like I feel like for a director, it would be a lot easier to just get a routine and take the PacRimmers to the same places, but that's something she'd never be willing to settle for. She always wants to have a new experience and to tailor the trip so that each PacRim group can have their own unique experience.
Everything just seems more laid back and relaxed and discussion-led and comfortable, which worked great for PacRim because sometimes we'd have classes in a hotel room and we'd be sitting on beds while learning about quantum physics and Tibetan Buddhism.
When Elizabeth Benard came, her contributions have been legion because she is another kind of model, not the 3-year turnover, but a series of 3-year appointments, such that the Benard years have some real meaning.
I think Maybe is extremely youthful. The way she lives her life is much younger than her years, and especially with Nima as her counterpart, the two of them together, just like this youthful young couple that has just met almost. And just that they're always pursuing new adventures together.
This is my husband, Nima George. He's originally from Tibet.
I think if you asked every single person who went on the trip, they would say that they were Nima's favorite because he does such an amazing job. He's just such a kind, warm, caring person, and he gives attention to everybody in a way that, you know, makes you feel like you're the center of the universe and you're extremely special. To be able to look at everyone that way, you're obviously an amazing person. Him laughing is the first thing I remember when I think of Nima. He's so playful and open to everything, and you know, rarely see him without a smile. It would be hard to take a trip without him, I would think, because you're in the midst of just constant cultural change and all this intellectual information coming at you, and then you've got this calming source of just happiness and joy there whenever you need it. He's essential to the group, I think everyone would agree, and we would all say we were his favorite.
Could it be? Is it the great and powerful Nima?
So as an educator, I value students very much, and also for me, tolerance is very important. And so this PacRim is just perfect. So I can kind of teach you about all these different cultures, expose you to many different things. You develop a lot of tolerance with understanding different people and different values. And so you guys are my valuable people.
Boy, we're lucky to have her.
The Pacific Rim program builds upon the pattern set down in the 1970s by the Albertsons and affords a certain continuity in spite of changes in the curriculum, changes in the itinerary, and the university.
Over the last 9 months, we developed a love for transportation via bus or train. It's all the same as long as we arrive at our next location.
So while the academic pursuits are very important and necessary, it's the people we meet, the friends we make along the way, as well as the deeper understanding and knowledge of the world and our place in it that makes these opportunities so rich and the education so successful.
The whole idea of coming to Asia and so on is to see places. So sitting in the classroom and listening to somebody lecture, it's all very well and good, but being able to go out and experience the places.
It's more valuable that way. It's more real.
In this realm, there's very little that you're doing where you're not learning. Walking around a neighborhood, your bargaining experiences, you're trying to talk to people who can't speak in more than 5 words of English. How do you communicate? Your willingness to try anything and everything that's put in front of you.
That sense that you know, Asia is very immediate. You must know about it. You cannot live in this world without knowing about that half of the world.
And again, I mean, sort of building that idea of world communities, of concern for other people. I can't see that that's ever something you don't want to do.
I study so that knowledge I can help others.
So, but when you're toiling with someone who is next to you, sharing this toy, then you naturally have a bond. And these friends last forever.
PacRimmers have something in common with all other PacRimmers, even under different directors or even under different styles of our staffing of the director position.
There's a bond PacRimmers form. It's interesting to meet someone who went to UPS and, oh wow, you have a little bond. But the minute you say you did a PacRim, it's a stronger bond.
So I think everybody who goes on that trip must have, to some extent, that same experience of finding things that come up in conversation in kind of odd times and say,
We're all in this together.
Well,
the people who've been the students there. People who may not know before they leave that they'll come back as risk takers, as true individuals, because they go in a group. There's something attractive about going in a group, but the year has this remarkable effect of making them able to handle almost anything that comes their way. If a good liberal arts education is in part about being ready for the unexpected, then the Pacific Rim program is the epitome of a liberal arts experience.
And as long as they keep on finding the right leader, there's no question there'll be a great group of people like yourselves who want to do this.
And as I found myself saying to someone lately, once a PacRimmer, always a PacRimmer.
It's time to scatter and gather.
The pictures make it look a lot better than it actually was.
Asia's just so, you know, different.
Yeah, we have to try and make this, you know, something that's valuable.
Thanks for not screwing it up.
Director's interest in what happens can really help for the students' interest, and ours, I think, was always in excess of the students. And that was
Go UPS! Woo! Woo!
And I wouldn't have been on that trip if it wasn't for Carl Fields. Is that good? All right.
And we're walking to the airport in West Bengal. There's PacRim!